stuck in the mail. Welcome, everyone, to the Stuck in the Mail podcast. Today, we are talking about the Irish rock band U2, the album The Unforgettable Fire from the year 1984. We're taking it back.
A
Um,
big
I,
year. Big
I
year all around.
a big year all around. Yeah, I feel like this is sort of a lesser known U2 album. Um,
Okay.
Tell me your experience with this album, Casey.
As a record hoarder, collector, and seller, you'd be surprised how often I see it.
Oh,
It's kind of surprising. I think it's one of the first ones I sent you because you love you too. And I think we'll get into it more, but it's one of their first like kind of breakthrough like albums. Sold a lot. So
mhm.
yeah, I think it's just that era where they were still making. I think that's where it kind of ended for vinyl, like 84 about, most stuff still was coming out on vinyl and cassette, at
Yep.
that point.
And I was always more into U2 than you were.
Yes, a lot.
They were one of my favorite bands, and what really did it for me, what really caught my attention was the song New Year's Day.
Yep. Definitely agree with that. The
Oh,
video more specifically the video.
yep, that song being on the album War. And I'm pretty sure that War was one of the first CDs I ever bought.
Really? Huh. That I can't verify, but okay, I'll go along with that.
I think it was probably part of I think what happened is I bought the Achtung Baby cassette, and then
Yeah, that sounds
got,
right.
and then I think I went back in time because once I saw New Year's Day, I was like, okay, I have to get into old U2, which was
Okay.
War, and then I think I got the CD through like BMG or something like that.
So this is your YouTube Paul's Boutique. You just heard the name, and of course there's no internet or anything. Just trying to survive in the early 90s, and you just got it randomly, hadn't heard any of the songs, or you've probably heard Pride, right?
Yes, I don't remember when I got this one. I probably taped it off of someone originally.
Mhm.
I had heard Pride, of course, but this one, let's just say it's an atmospheric record. It is,
Yeah,
other than Pride, it is not a pop record.
correct.
And it was kind of a giant leap forward for U2. You know how I feel about giant leap forward records. It's interesting listening to it now. I don't think I would say I used to have all my U2 albums ranked because I am a big fan of U2.
Hmm.
But in recent years, I've gone back to listen to them all. I think I would go Achtung Baby first. I would say second best is probably the Joshua Tree, as much as it pains me to say so. I've always said Unforgettable Fire is my number two. But listening to it this week, I'm like, it's good, but it's maybe not quite what I remember.
So it's fallen at number three.
I would probably put it at number three. A lot of people really love War. A lot of people love the very first record, Boy. That's kind of your U2 era, right?
I do like Boy because I really like I Will Follow, which is their first single. I kind of like that, I'm not going to say punk U2, but certainly they do kind of come out of at least what we would now call post-punk. Um, and I mean, it's a really upbeat song, so yeah, I do like that one. And then I'm in the war camp of you know, not really Sunday Bloody Sunday, but definitely New Year's Day. But I'm not I don't yuck people's yums anymore, but I'm not there are many why I'm not in the U2 camp. Uh but I'm not here to hate on U2 or Bono or anything. I'm here to talk about this album. So
Well, I went on a pretty deep dive with U2 because earlier this year, because I was like, you know what? I never really like I completely lost interest when they did that sort of back to the basics record in like 2000. And
mhm.
it was just a big disappointment to me because they went backwards basically. They went
Yeah.
back to try to make the Joshua Tree again. I'm like, okay, everything was really earnest again. And I'm like, I just lost interest. So I'm like, I need to listen to everything they've done in the 2000s. I got to be honest, it didn't really stick with me. And this is a
Yeah.
band that I really loved and I still do. And I think Octung Baby is weirdly underrated.
Yeah.
I think
That's
it's a
one of those
masterpiece.
mysterious ways, right?
Yeah, Mysterious Ways was my
That's a great single. That's a great U2 single, in my opinion.
yeah. I think to me, and a lot of people love War. To me, War is very uneven. The B side of that one is just very meh. But then
Yeah.
you get to this album, The Unforgettable Fire, and something switches where all of a sudden they are doing like ambient music. It has this sort of lush, I would say almost romantic sensibility to it.
Yep.
Um,
Are we gonna name drop the name yet?
go for it.
I get to do it.
Do
I
it.
think I think there's good reason, and I'm gonna fail to name the other producer, but this is the first album of many that they worked with the infamous, legendary glam rock weirdo on that weird keyboardy, weird Moog Moog strange thing sound effect machine, the legendary producer Brian Eno. And he half produced this and is probably attributed to why a lot of this is so ambient because he had just gotten through albums and albums of literally creating the genre ambient music
Yep.
on a popular scale. We'll say
Yep.
that.
Absolutely. Very critically acclaimed. You'll find a lot of his albums and best of lists. I've listened to them. I mean, there's some really interesting soundscapes, um, really fascinating artist. I think you're probably more into Brian Eno than I am. I more know him for what he's produced than what he
Oh yeah, yeah,
personally put out. And it wasn't just Brian Eno. He had a partner there, Daniel Lanois.
yeah. French, right? Yeah, I knew it was with an L.
He's a Canadian, but has I would say, a Cajun sensibility,
Okay,
New Orleans. So, and I actually know a lot more about Daniel Lanois than I do about
okay.
Brian Eno. The weird thing for me is I can trace all the albums that I loved in the 90s, or a lot of them anyway, he was involved with. Like I found this out later. I mean, I'd gotten used to seeing their names, these producers, Eno and Lanois on U2, of course, but Daniel Lanois did two of the most atmospheric, surprise, surprise, Dylan albums, Oh
Hmm.
Mercy and Time Out of Mind.
Hmm.
It's that sort of swampy, reverb heavy sound that I just love. He did Emmylou Harris's Wrecking Ball,
Hmm.
masterpiece, if you ask me.
Right.
He worked with the Neville Brothers. Yellow
Okay.
Moon is an amazing album. And
Also New Orleans, the
yep,
Devils.
and Peter Gabriel, So and Us.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's
Um,
good. I did not know that, and that makes tons of sense from that side of things. And
so
of
that
course,
U2 is really working with a dream team,
yeah. And
and
that's the only time, right? Only this album with both of them.
no, that's actually
Oh,
they actually went on. They made I know that they had both Eno and Lanois for Joshua Tree and Octung Baby,
okay.
maybe some others, but this was a real creative match in heaven. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
this is what I'm uncovering is this sort of uh, combination of the band with these two guys resulted in my opinion, their greatest work.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, whatever they got going on with them working with bands, you obviously really like
yeah,
because that's not just in your wheelhouse. That's like in your pocket, you know. Uh,
totally. And
I
it's
didn't
just
realize. I just kind of realized that, Eno, of course, he did, Joshua Tree, which is it always shocks people, and I think he did later works of theirs too. And I I didn't re-research today, but I remembered a week ago when I was researching this, like he was definitely reluctant to work with you too. And I hope that doesn't like, you know, that's not trying to be negative. It's just that he was like, well, why do I work with this Irish rock band, But I think when he got away from that, I think what he did with them is noteworthy. I mean, it's not. I'm sure there's tons of Eno fans that could care less about his work with you too, but that combination, if you like that combination, I mean, this is the
yep.
birthplace of it. And if you like that sound, there are other places you can go that aren't U2 that are really strong examples as well that you gave.
Well,
So,
and I think if you look at U2's back catalog, they had a couple of those sort of moody songs on their earlier albums that I would say sort of anticipated the Eno approach.
mhm.
There's a song called Tomorrow. It has like traditional Irish instruments. It's really
Oh, cool.
haunting,
That's
slow.
on that's on War.
It might be on October. There's a
October.
song called The Ocean that is very, yeah, atmospheric, moody. There's a song called
They're
Uncut.
all when they're all unkept lads.
Look at those lads. Um, so there's a few songs. So
Yeah,
you're
it's
right.
it's on that one.
a lot of their early stuff sounds like I Will Follow. Very frenetic, very rhythmic, you know what I mean? But every
Mhm.
now and then you get these kind of like hints of where they would later go with this album here. So, um,
They're using a lot of like E-pros, I believe, by this point, right? I don't know that for a fact, but I know especially the B side of this album is heavily Eno, and
yeah,
you
so
can hear it.
you can hear it on a track like Fourth of July, which is an
Uh-huh.
instrumental, where
Yeah, yeah,
apparently,
exactly.
yeah,
Just sounds like an Eno track.
yeah, apparently it was just the guys messing around in the studio. Which,
Yeah,
by the way, they recorded this in a castle.
yeah. It's on the
Uh,
cover, right? Or no? Is
it's
that
actually it's actually not the castle on the cover
okay?
because I think they here's the thing. I think they wanted to look like they wanted it to seem like they recorded it in this castle, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
actual
yeah,
castle's a lot more posh. But
yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Look, listening back, I'm just gonna call it out. I love this band, but I'm gonna. This is why it didn't sit as well with me on the revisit.
Uh-oh. Oh,
It's all very humorless. It's all very,
definitely.
and I guess that's why people are annoyed by you two that don't like you two. Is that fair to say?
What I would say, and I was thinking about this earlier, like a lot of people get annoyed by Bono, but I think it's pretty fair to say that, sure, he might have a lot of bravado and ego, but I think it's pretty fair to say that he's a really good person and does a lot of good deeds.
Yep.
And I thought about that a lot, and I was like, man, I got some idols, especially right now, and people hate him. People absolutely hate him. But you know what? When you really look at what they're actually doing good things. Now, they might not always be saying the right things or whatnot, but we're all humans. So I think that's the toe that gets stubbed the quickest for you two is
Mhm.
Bono and his kind of super ego, if I can throw that out here. And I'm not going to hate that. I'm just pointing it out because I think that's where the toe gets stubbed for you two.
Yeah, and to me, I guess it doesn't come across as ego so much as it is just taking yourself really seriously.
Yeah, they definitely, I mean, they've earned that. I mean, how many albums do they have?
Well,
Dozen?
and I listen to like Rattle and Hum. That album is insufferable. That album is a dud.
What is the hit on that? I wouldn't even remember that album.
Oh, there's a bunch, but it is the height of their like we're gonna go to America and we're gonna play blues music because we understand it so well, and it's just
Uh,
very off-putting. This is making it sound like I really don't like this band, but I really do.
It's
But
okay. There's a lot to it. I mean, this
here's
this
my
could be a
point.
very long pod.
But here's what I'm getting to.
Uh,
Auction Baby. The more distance I get from it, the better it is because it is them making fun of themselves. It is them um uh yeah, like it's a sort of ironic take on the U2 myth and persona, and they're laughing at themselves, and that is what makes that one work.
what about then? What's the really electronic one? Zoo or what is Zoo TV
Okay,
or
so and I promise we're going to talk about this album, but uh so Octoon Baby, then you have Zooropa, which is this
Zooropa?
really
Really
weird,
weird.
very European sensibility. The A side is absolutely brilliant. It's so fantastic and so original, and I love everything about it. The B side, not so much. Um,
Is there a
and
rap song on that one?
yeah, that's got Numb. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of almost like a more REM, like it's the end of the world, like just rattling off. It's not like a rap song, but sure, it is.
That was, yeah, Numb is the perfect example. It's the antithesis of the
Yeah,
yearning, taking yourself too seriously
yeah.
thing.
That's
Uh,
the Edge one, right?
that's yeah, the Edge is doing lead vocals. Then where was I? Zooropa. Oh, Pop. Pop was a really, really,
Oh,
really big deal in my world. I was in college at the
yeah,
time, and it
yeah.
was a super highly anticipated album because they were going electronic, and that was what everyone was doing at the time.
Yes. Big
Chemical
time.
Brothers, all that stuff was happening, Prodigy. And the album is good, but maybe like a B minus.
Now my question did is that one Brian Eno? Do you know that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Because I don't know how they could go electronic without being still with Eno, but who knows?
My guess is that it was with Eno, but maybe someone can
Okay.
fact check us in the comments.
Hmm.
But we should talk about this album. Uh,
Yes.
that's my experience with you too. I just for those maybe if you didn't grow up in the 90s or come of age in the 90s, it's hard to understand why they were such a big deal. But everybody I knew was into U2. Everybody I knew, they sort of felt like old elder statesmen a little bit, kind of like
Yeah.
REM. They
Oh
were in
yeah.
their 30s at the
Also fan.
time,
Yeah.
but they just had this aura of massive arena rock superstars. I did see them on the Pop Mart tour in Seattle. Uh,
Nice.
Quite a spectacle.
Nice.
But anyway, this album, so you have, I would categorize it, you have these anthems. You have A Sort of Homecoming, which has this really interesting bass lead, you know, uh,
Hmm.
and then A Sort of Homecoming, and then the title track, The Unforgettable Fire. And then I would say Indian Summer Sky, I would put in that category as well. That these are these sort of soaring, uh, super earnest, super poetic, um, I don't know how you would describe them. Yeah, like it's not like most 80s rock. There's sort of a spiritual yearning to it.
Yeah. Oh,
Fair to
definitely,
say.
man. I
Um,
remember, if I can go on a small tangent here, I remember when I
sure.
was in England, it was explained to me by my Mormon flatmate that the Joshua Tree, which is the album that follows this, was about coming to America and experiencing the Mormon faith. And she was Mormon. She explained to me that the streets have no names is a reference to the fact that the streets don't, they're all numbered from the main church in Salt Lake City. And she told me all these songs, and I was like, really? I was like, huh, I just had no clue.
That's the
Like
first.
I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And there's so many references to, I guess, the Mormon faith. I had no idea.
Yeah, I've never heard that about the Mormon faith in particular. I'm not saying it's incorrect, but that is an interesting theory.
Yeah, that's what she thought. And the Joshua Tree, I mean, I kind of think more Arizona when I think of Joshua trees, but or even Southern California. Where are Joshua trees?
Yeah, Southern California, Eastern California.
And there's a weird thing about them too, like why they're called Joshua trees and
Yeah,
Joshua.
it's a biblical, isn't it
Yeah,
that Joshua had his arms outstretched?
I think so. And they grow really strange too. Like they're like a little cactus that grows into a tree, you know.
Well, and this
Weird.
band, so for those who maybe weren't like us in the 90s, like this is the kind of band that my friends would be like, "Hey, did you know there's like this lyric is based on a biblical reference or whatever." So like
Right.
there's all this sort of like really heavy, deep sort of yearning is the word I would use. We
And on this one, the title, I mean, I didn't really know, but I mean, I think most of it, like Pride and everything, it's to MLK, right?
A lot of it is Martin Luther King, yes. Of course, the final track is.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, Pride wasn't always about Martin Luther King. It was a lot of these songs had different lyrics and
Hmm.
or that he was just figuring them out. And I think that I've read that at a certain point he just decided to make the song about MLK. Like it was originally going to be about like Ronald Reagan and the war machine. So a very different
Okay.
take. But I
Very apropos for 84.
and here's the Eno influence. You have some half-formed songs. You
Oh,
have, by Bono's own admission, a song like Bad, where he's kind of riffing the whole song with these lyrics that maybe don't make logical sense, but are more impressionistic.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, or I have to know, tell me your thoughts on Elvis Presley in America.
I'll try. Bad title. I have a lot of question marks. That's one that's really slow and really sparse, right?
Yes, and
Just drums.
it sounds like them messing around at a sound check.
Yeah. I don't know. One of my biggest complaints throughout this whole thing, and I think not to complain, but to point out is I think it's the Edge's guitar by this point.
Mhm.
That jangly, but it's like how it comes in and gets louder and louder throughout the song. And just his playing, I've never been a fan. I think it's I think it's my second thing besides it goes Bono himself and to some degree his singing and then the Edge, his guitar. Because I
Well,
think you take those elements away, I actually like this album. I like Brian Eno and I like Eno's work here, but I do have a hard time with they're like this super birds or something. People always call them jangly. But
Yeah.
U2 is so jangly.
Well,
And
it's
it
more
has that
echo.
effect on it, you know? That
Yeah.
effect that, like lifts it and keeps it going like a fader or a delay or whatever.
Yeah. It's like
Uh,
echo and delay. And
Echo, yeah. It's definitely Echo.
speaking of religious illusions,
Hmm.
uh, I know I spend a lot of my time in churches, and I just would like to say that as I'm listening to Bad from 1984, it sounds like every worship song from like the year 2000 until now.
Okay.
That that is the template for church music.
I
And
gotcha.
it
Yeah.
was influential in a pretty surprising way, but everyone tries to sound like the Edge in big churches.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you would love it, Casey.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Why is it called Bad? What is up with this song title? What it,
I don't know, but I've listened to some live recordings, and at the beginning, he was like, Michael Jackson, I don't believe you're bad.
okay, well, Bad, when did Bad by Michael Jackson come out? Like 89?
Right. So, in other words, he was like, I guess this was during Michael Jackson's, like when he was being accused of stuff. And anyway, we,
Okay. Well, that didn't go over well.
I don't know why it's called Bad.
Okay.
That song's a highlight for me. Did you have any thoughts on the song Wire?
I loved it. Probably my favorite track. I want to know if it is I like the quick repetitive. It's almost like a callback to earlier U2. And then I'm really curious if there's any like, nod to the band Wire.
Maybe. I get the sense that it is a drug like reference, like I don't know if it's withdrawals or it definitely feels like a song of angst about
Okay.
drug use. So I don't
Gotcha.
know if there's a reference to the band Wire.
Hmm.
That might be my favorite song on the album too. It's
Yeah, it's a
very
good one.
good for driving late at night.
Yeah. I think Pride's a great song. It's not a song I necessarily want to listen to. Um, and that song is about MLK.
Yes,
Did I already say that? I
probably.
got a lot of notes. Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, I probably thought it was more about, who, the big guy. But MLK works too, or even if you want to make it more accessible to mainstream, you can make it MLK. I mean,
Well, and
you're not
it's
gonna get a more
interesting.
powerful speaker.
This album, I believe, came right after October. October is their most religious album. October's
Really?
got some, like, as the story goes, three of the four of them were really wanting to basically be a Christian band, but the
Uh-huh.
bassist Clayton was like, no thanks.
Gotcha.
And
I
so
think it's after War. I think War,
you're
which has a
right.
boy on it, which is confusing because of boy.
Yeah,
But
it goes
yeah.
October, War, Unforgettable Fire. You're right. But they've always dabbled in religious imagery, for sure. I'll just give you my take on
Well,
why
they're Irish Catholic, right?
they're Irish. What I don't know if it's Catholic or Protestant, which of course
I
is
mean,
a
of course, that's a hot issue in Ireland.
it
Uh,
matters a lot.
it matters a lot, and that's a fun thing we could really go down a rabbit hole in because being Irish, there's all kinds of interesting things about Bono and Shane and Bono and Sinead,
Yep.
and the Irish music community is so small, especially those that made it to a global level. And I think I might have named them all besides the Cranberries, you
Yeah.
know. And so there is all these big things, and
Well, talking about this album,
interesting.
if I may sum up,
Hmm.
um, I picked it because I'm trying to convince you of its greatness. But part of that process is you go back and you listen to it again objectively. And it's maybe not quite as great as I remember, but I
That's okay.
still love it. And here's why I love it because, maybe it's a time and place thing. There have been several times when I've been on a long drive in an introspective mood, and the Eno Lanois sort of soundscapes, the production, Bono's beautiful voice. He sings the heck out of this album.
Yeah, I mean the guy can really sing. It's not disputable.
It's the guitar textures. I know maybe with the Edge, it's kind of a acquired taste, but at least a little bit of it. Uh, for
It's
me,
been it's
for
been
me,
said that they have a weak rhythm section. I don't believe that. It was Henry. I saw a thing that Henry Rollins said they had a weak rhythm section. I was like, what? Not here. Maybe later. I don't know. That seems
well,
weird, right?
It does. I mean, I would say they have a strong rhythm section. Uh,
Definitely.
Maybe not the most inventive, but I would say I've just had enough personal experiences of this album where when it ended with MLK and faded out, everything felt right with the world.
I think you were on one of those coast drives or something, or in the back of your cars.
Got to be
I
the
think
coast. The
I think
coast is
it's
the
a bit.
common denominator.
I think it's a bit time and place, and that's fine. I mean, I have attachments with memories with albums, but I think the real core of it is that you really like that Lanois, production
It's true.
because that elevates this. I mean, for me, if you take this album without that, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the whole for me, that's the point. I am an Eno fan and I wish I knew his stuff better. I
Hmm.
love his first solo album. It's really his only album that truly is a rock, like a glam rock album. And I've heard that the guy can't even play music. Like he basically like dances around and people are like, okay. And he's like, well, can't you interpret that and make music out of it? So he's a total loon, especially back then. And then, the mullet and now he just looks like some old dude. You're like, who's this old dude, It's like, oh, that's Brian Eno. He's made 500 ambient records. He's produced the Talking Heads and Devo and U2 and
Yep.
uh, you could just keep going, you know.
Well, I probably should have done Octung Baby, but I didn't.
That's okay. I think it's a good pick. I think this is where it starts with Eno, and that for me at least
Yeah.
is a good starting point.
And
Um,
I do love it. There are moments on this that I find very very transcendent and unlike any other band. So
yeah.
I stand by my pick, but I got to
If
keep it real.
if this was a lousy album, would we have gotten the, million selling Joshua Tree and,
Yeah.
Actune Baby? I don't know. I don't they could have just faded into obscurity, really.
Yeah. It's
And
true.
that's important. So
Tell
I
me
would say
what you got
good
coming
job.
next.
Well, it's an interesting question. I've narrowed it down to four. I had it at two, and I was going to do the hand thing, but I think I'm going to go with just a classic pick here. One that we were listening to and talking a lot about before we even started this. And it's not an album from the 90s or our childhood. It's an older album, but it's one that always gets the nod for being great, but then most people don't even know it. And it's also relevant today. So that's the Kinks.
Oh, good.
There's the title. There's the picture. Hello. Ah! And it's Lola and the oh gosh, Power Man and the Money Go Round. Ah!
So I'm so glad we're doing this. I
Yeah,
love this album.
it's like a top 20 70s album, obscure but great classic, right?
And
Something
it qualifies for this podcast because you did introduce me to it.
awesome.
It was
Awesome.
just a little while ago, so I already know
This
it.
this will just be we'll both just be sitting here singing the praises of it, and that's fine. I'll tell you what, it's one you don't see on album a lot.
Mhm.
I've only owned two in my life, and I sold one, unfortunately. And I remember I told the person I was like, "You're really getting something here," which I don't do a lot. And so,
Well, my hot take is that Rats might be the best song on the album.
it's a varied album. It's like amazing song, just okay, amazing song, just okay, amazing song, but so many amazing songs. And yeah, I think Lola's a fun topic too.
Oh yeah.
Most people don't look at those lyrics, so we'll get some more Chapel Roan fans, and who knows. And thank you everyone for that. I saw it's above 160, so tell your friends and your friends' friends and like and subscribe and all that stuff.
All right, Casey. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. That was
All
a good
right.
one. It was fun.